Welcome to Jadonna Live, a space that is honest, passionate, and non-threatening, where people can process out loud, ask better questions, and grow on purpose without pretending that they've got it all together. Because ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time, and anybody got time, and anybody got time for that. If you know, you know. Super excited to chat with you all today, and grateful that I am even able to record. I am not gonna lie, I am at my absolute last leg when it comes to my throat. I have had the worst cough and the worst throat cold over the past couple days, which isn't normally a thing for me, so that has really sucked. What has been great is I have been watching and consuming a ton of basketball, watching the NBA Finals. The NBA is like kicking off like preseason games, so that's been fun watching the Indiana Fever with their new team. And yeah, just kind of been developing strategies for the podcast that I need to build out further and implement. And people, I really do appreciate a lot of you have been invested in the podcast and asking me a lot about it lately. And I'm like, guys, it's like good, macro. But micro, I have so much to do and I have so much to do every day. And I just decided last week that I'm going to start having one day a week where I do no work on it. And at least like half the day. And Daniel, my husband, thought that was very good because, yeah. Yeah. So we're working on that. But I love this work that I'm doing. It still comes with a lot. So while I signed up for it, yes, I know still a lot to do, particularly in this redevelopment phase, which won't last forever. So that is what my friend Kate reminded me of this morning. Thank you, Kate. And it's just true. So yeah, I've been building out weekly social media strategies across most platforms, learning to use the podcast tool. I use Riverside better and integrating things with GarageBand and then trying to add music, maybe hopefully to some segments and just focusing on leveling up overall. So there is kind of an element of pressure, I feel, even in just articulating that stuff out loud because I'm like, oh God, people are going to hold me to this. Dang it. But a core tenet of this podcast is honesty, right? So here we are being honest. That's where I'm at. So as I do grow this, though, your continued support is super helpful. And continuing to write reviews will help other people even know this podcast exists. So, for those of you who screenshot your review for this month, either on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, send me an email at jadonnalive@gmail.com and I will send a coffee to you on me for that if you send that screenshot. So, send it ASAP. And thanks so much. Until then, let's go ahead and do our new affirmation segment for the month of May, all about grounding. Now it is time for the affirmation segment. For those new to the podcast, I conduct an affirmation segment every episode where I invite you to repeat life-giving phrases out loud and grading them into your subconscious mind. The goal is to be intentional about who you want to be and where you're going. And I have found affirmations practices have helped me and for a few years now. So you're welcome to listen to each affirmation first, then repeat it out loud with me. And my purpose for this segment this month is to look at just to look inward and to ground ourselves. Last month, there was a lot of like action, do, create. And now it's time to really observe what we've done, analyze, and prep for upcoming action while taking things in as we can. So let's go ahead and ground ourselves. Let's connect our feet with the ground. Let's start deepening our breath there. Go ahead and take a deep breath through your nose. Out of your mouth. All right. Repeat after me if you so choose. I am still in this moment. I am still in this moment. I am present in this moment. I am present in this moment. I am still in this moment. I am still in this moment. I am present in this moment. I am present in this moment. I listen as I take a deep breath through my nose. I listen as I release that breath out of my mouth. I listen as I take a deep breath through my nose. I listen as I repeat that breath out of my mouth. And I acknowledge that more work can always be done. I acknowledge that more work can always be done. I choose now to continue the work I've already done. I choose now to continue the work I have already done. I choose to edit my work with intention. I choose to edit my work with intention. I choose to enhance my work with ease. I choose to enhance my work with ease. My goal is progress over perfection. My goal is progress over perfection. I choose to organize my work as best I can. I choose to organize my work as best I can. I choose to complete my projects. I choose to complete my projects. I choose progress over perfection. I choose progress over perfection. And finally, I trust myself to follow through. I trust myself to follow through. All right, let's move on. Welcome back to the mini moment segment. In this segment, I introduce topics that have been on my mind lately. I share related thoughts, and I invite you all to relay your thoughts to me on the topic via email. I think it'd be fun for us to have some discourse on these topics, and so I invite you all to relay your thoughts to me via email. And I finally have a Jadonna Live email address, so please send your thoughts to jadonnalive@gmail.com, because we out here. So let's just jump right in it. Today's mini moment is all about building community when it's awkward. So this is on the forefront of my mind due to just the state of the world. I mean, everyone knows this, everyone's hearing it everywhere, but the political uncertainty we've been presented with every week since the freaking Trump administration has begun, enacting various mandates and restrictions that all feel so nerve-wracking and just heinous all at the same time. It makes you think in worst case scenario ways, at least for me. Like, okay, if shit were to go down, there's political unrest, social upheaval, who would help me outside of my family? Which friends, which neighbors can I rely on, and who can really rely on me? That kind of got me thinking, do I know the people in my neighborhood and actually trust them if I needed to, if we needed to trust each other? And kind of in those thoughts, just taking a step back to think like, God forbid a worst case scenario, but do I even know people's names like walking down the street? Am I building a foundation for rapport to even get to that step? So those have really been the thoughts. So this isn't the first time I've had that thought. Last year, when my husband and I first moved back to Indiana, after being in LA for 5 years, I returned here with the goal of being like, okay, we're going to get to know the people we knew before. Again, we're going to rekindle those relationships. And ooh, how can we do that? So my husband's big into board games. I pitched him a 4-night board game summer series where we'd invite like 30 people to our house over the summer once a month to play games and to hang out and to connect and eat and whatever. So my goal was to connect with people we haven't seen with, but to make sure there were just the lowest stakes. Like people could just kind of pop in, pop out, socialize with people who were there. And there would be a lot of people who didn't know each other, but I actually loved the idea of that. So a few years ago, I read the book, The Art of Gathering by Priya Parker, which talks all about intentionally creating events to create exactly what you want them to be. I don't know that I phrased that in the best way, but for example, creating a game night with the purpose of connecting folks with people either they have never met or with the purpose of just like getting to see people you haven't seen in a while. Obviously, my purpose. So when I initially read that book, it inspired me to throw myself a 29th birthday party using some of the tenets of the book, and that ended up working out fine, but not quite as I envisioned. So, I thought, okay, I'm going to take on this summer game night. I'm going to use the same principles from the book, and it's going to be a much more chill iteration, though. So, a game night. And that's kind of how that idea was born. So, the game nights. The goal was for my husband to handle the game side of things. I have talked about his obsession with board games a trillion times on this podcast, but if you are new here, he is obsessed. So, he'll handle the games, I'll take on the music, decor, food, whatever. What happened was I had not hosted an event of literally over like 4 people in so long. The biggest gathering we had when we lived in LA, we lived in a back house, so not a lot of space, one. But the biggest gathering we had was actually our going away party, which every day, not every day, but I think so much about how we didn't take one picture at that, which is kind of absurd. So anyway, I've been out of practice. I hadn't hosted a big thing in a while. So I totally kind of neglected the fact that folks coming by don't know each other. I knew that in spirit and I was excited by that, but forgot that like, oh, I should probably do some introductions. I didn't want to have the burden of doing that because sometimes that can be annoying, but if you're going to bring a group of a ton of people together and it's not like a party where lights are dim and people are going to kind of be running into each other and whatever, and it's a small space, like an introduction or 2 would likely be good. So an important tenet of Priya Parker's book In the Art of Gathering spoke to not being a chill host. I've talked about this in another podcast, but what she means by that is creating the event you desire can happen with work and with intention, not just in the planning, but in the day of orchestrating. And sometimes what that requires, at least in my case with the purpose of what I wanted the game nights to be, meant potentially doing more introductions than I had, altering the spacing a little bit because our living area and dining area is pretty compact, and doing a couple other things. And I don't say this to be hard on myself, nor do I say this to mean that every single event anyone does has to have this frame of thinking. No. But I knew I had a purpose, a higher, sort of broader purpose when I was creating these game nights that I kind of like didn't actually plan around. So that's really what I'm trying to say. And I realized a little bit too late. Like I wasn't super clear with myself on how I was going to elicit what I was envisioning. I just made it really clear what I was envisioning. So for example, like not introducing anyone to anyone. We had multiple games going on at the same time. And then what happens when you invite people who do know each other and some people who don't? The people who do know each other really chat, and the people who don't are just kind of like, ooh, they don't know anyone else. I'm the sort of person where if I'm at a party, I will introduce myself to whomever. However, not everyone is like that. And I'd say our game nights probably were like maybe 2/3 of people who would, I don't know. Okay, it's probably half and half. Like some people would do that and some people wouldn't. So again, all that to say the ultimate goal of our board game night was to build community and connect. But I personally didn't want the responsibility of putting all the work that type of gathering would require to be successful. I didn't want to be like tired, but then on the other hand, I don't want to be that host who seems really intense to the point where I'm like kind of trying to control everything, even though I am. So why do I care if that's what's observed? Whatever. All that to say, it matters because I have been thinking about community and what it really looks like in my life. Social resources of all kinds are being limited left and right. Natural disasters becoming more prevalent. As I mentioned earlier, I felt more of a need to engage with the people I know, in addition to the people I live around. So I was kind of pulling some little stats. According to California Volunteers Neighbor to Neighbor website, knowing at least 6 neighbors is associated with improving your sense of health and well-being, and helps communities be better connected, more resilient in, and prepared for disasters. Amongst that article, various podcasts I've been listening to, the wildfires in California, floods in the Midwest, ice raids, have just made me more aware of the fact that, like, yeah, I want to know people, more broadly and kind of build a broader network in my city overall. But I also really want to hunker down and get to know the people in my neighborhood. And we've only lived here for a year. we have a hardy old winter. So for about 3.5 to 4 months, you're not even really outside. And so that's just made it pretty difficult to get to know my neighbors really well. And so my husband, my kid, my dog, and I, we try to go on walks daily when it's nice outside. And yes, we want to get outside, feel the fresh air, blah, blah, blah. But also, my nosy ass just wants to get to know the people in my neighborhood. Like, who do I live around? I want to know, what's your name? What do you do for work? Who else do you know here? Your brother lives down the street. Cool. Like, I just know. I just want to know. And so it's like, especially us, we bought our house. So it's like, might as well get to know your neighbors. I don't know how long we're going to live here. Probably 5 years. I don't know. But it's like, should probably get to know the people around me, especially since we're in both a renter and owner neighborhood. And so I brought up the game night idea to my husband again for this year. And I was like, do you want to take another stab at it? I know last year I had you in charge of the games, but since he loves very specific games, I was like, okay, if we're going to kind of like hone in and make this more community specific, we should probably do less hardy games, more light games, and kind of have me maybe manage like the social aspect of that a bit. And so I also said to him, what if we invite our neighbors? Our neighbor, it's like, yes, have our friends, but let's also invite our neighbors and kind of see what happens with that. And so initially we're both like, do we want to invite our whole block? Because that's what I suggested. We don't know everyone on our street. We also, however, have a pretty small street. So I don't want you guys to think this is like 30 neighbors. It's really like 10. And so I'm like, let's do it. Sure, we don't know everyone. Some folks can be weird. Others, we've literally only seen a handful of times. But I couldn't shake the thought that just because it's awkward meant we shouldn't do it. Just because it's awkward meant we shouldn't even consider it. I was like, I don't know that it being awkward is good enough reason to not even try. So, as I was kind of processing this idea with Daniel, I also brought it up to a friend of mine and was just saying, yeah, I think we're going to do the game nights again this year. And I mentioned to her that we were probably going to be inviting neighbors we don't know super well, and that I was curious how that would impact the overall vibe. And just watching her kind of process it, I could tell she was not into the idea. One, because I think she was thinking about the potential discomfort and awkwardness that would bring to her. And she actually expressed a disinterest in attending because I was like, oh yeah, I don't know if you'd even want to go because of that. And she was like, yeah, probably not. And even though, I'm not gonna lie, I was like, okay, my friend doesn't care to be in a potentially awkward scenario for fun. Which, sure, I could argue doesn't have to be awkward. But the gist is, it likely will be for at least a little bit. And as frustrating as that was to hear, the reality is Daniel and I are doing this for us and others who are interested in getting to know the people around them, who may not want to just like socialize to be cool or say the right thing or whatever. Not that that was this friend's thought, but more so just saying we are wanting to intentionally get to know the people in our city more. We're trying to, at least in my mind, Daniel would probably not agree with this, but I am trying to contribute to an existing, like living, breathing kind of social network. And here's the reality. Some folks are into that. Some folks are not, meaning some folks will come to your shit and other people won't. And I can't control what happens with that. But what I can control is continuing to extend the invite and letting folks know, whether, it's that friend, whether it's my neighbors or whatever, that like, hey, we're eager to get to know you better. I love just putting that out there and stating that very bluntly, like to people I'm trying to become better friends with. Hey, I don't know you well. Would love to get to know you more. I remember when I first moved to LA, I was trying to be a bit more coy because I was like, I want to be, I live in LA now. I want to be cool and just like, but the coolest version of yourself you can be is being yourself. Like the coolest ounce of you that you can bring to a space is the fullest ounce of you. And I have just been reminded of that time and time again, and being just very overt and like, hey, do you want to be friends? That was the way I started actually building relationships in LA. And that's kind of what I've been continuing to do here. And these game nights are just a great way I can do that, is inviting people I may not have ever hung out with before, but I'm like, hey, let's be closer. I'm inviting you to my game night. You've never been to my house. We've never hung out, but I think you're cool. Boom. Yeah. And just having the confidence to back that up. And so as I continue thinking about my community building, I continue reminding myself that I can be confident in how I want to go about it. And it doesn't have to be how everyone else would. Everybody doesn't think in the same way. Like, that doesn't mean I'm doing it wrong. And that also doesn't mean that I'm doing it the best way that's, most suitable for everyone. At the end of the day, I'm doing what I feel makes the most sense to me. And so I look forward to intentionally extending an invite to my neighbors to come to my house for a game night. Because even if they don't show up, I love that I'll at least get the opportunity to go to each neighbor's door and formally just introduce myself, let them know, hey, we live blah, blah, blah. Like, feel free to come over whenever. And I've seen my mom do that in the neighborhood I grew up in. And it was super important for people to just know that, wow, they took time out of their day to come to my door and express an interest in me. Like, whether you say or think you would care about something like that or not, there's just a feeling of flatteredness, I don't know, that you feel if someone just takes an interest in you, a genuine interest. And I believe that something like that goes a long way in building rapport. And so that's what I want to do. Data was just like, I can just see it being like, okay, but I wouldn't do it alone. I would want him to come with me. I'm not going door to door to my neighbors inviting them to something by myself, but I still want to do it, and we'll kind of see how that goes. Like I said, my mom's done that in the neighborhood I grew up in all my life, just taking time out of her day to get to know the people we lived around. And it doesn't mean she was besties with all of them. It doesn't mean that everyone got along super well, but she was always there for people. And I really loved that. And I think it went a long way. And still to this day, how old am I? 30? Well, whatever. And she's lived, like, my parents have lived in that neighborhood forever at this point, and they have a lot of respect by the people who've lived there as long as them. And I just feel like it's gone a long way. People pass away, people's children pass away, partners, people get sick, like my mom coordinating meals or like collecting money, or people just clearing out people's driveways or lawns, or just being a tangible source of support for the people around you, something I've seen her do. And I'm like, I want to do that. And if no one else in my neighborhood, again, I'm new, so I also don't want to be that person that's like, okay, I just got here, let me, but we've been here a year now. And I feel like that's enough time to be like, okay, we live on the corner, like, let's just try to kind of bring that vibe. The reality of bringing people together, though, for anyone who's really done that, is it's awkward. Okay? People are awkward, and sometimes it's just fucking awkward. Like, some personalities don't mesh. Some people, we all know them, some people can't shut up. Some personalities just like completely take over a room. Some folks don't even say more than a few words. And other people, you are like, yes, they are here. I love them. They will be the social butterfly I need to like have this space feel the way I want it to feel. So that's just kind of the reality of community. It's not always the prettiest, most fun, easeful thing you've ever experienced, but I do trust myself to facilitate it as smoothly as I can in my little corner of the neighborhood. And so I'm just curious how else others are really thinking about community building, and if people are, how you see taking it seriously and what that really looks like. Whether it's like a church Bible study, especially out here in the Midwest, lots of those, improv groups, roller derbies, your kids' daycare, work colleagues, friends at your co-working spaces, your virtual entrepreneurial group, for some of us who are in those, just what it has really looked like for you to be intentionally leading into building community in this stage of your life. Because I feel and I know it is really necessary, but the practicality of it, I think, can be lost on people, especially when we've got such thriving social media, accessible and easy and ready. And for me, trust is just a massive piece. It's a massive piece of this whole community building thing, but I don't know that it needs to be harped on, because the reality is I've got my close friends and family, the people who provide the most support in my life, and the people who are already there for me. I'm not really trying to replace that, nor am I really trying to like grow that a ton. So when I talk about neighbors and connecting with other folks more broadly, the neighbors I meet and kind of get to know and start building community with, I'm not expecting to all of a sudden be best friends with or talk to them every day, or even, like I said, replace my closest friends. Neighbors, for example, are people I don't need to trust, like, with my life. Again, unless shit goes down, then I'm like, yo, okay, who's out here for me? But I can at least know them by name. What do they like? What do they not like? I know their birthday's coming up. Just like build a mutual rapport. And then maybe that'll lead to a potential deeper relationship in the long run. Like, it's a springboard for that. And so, one of the things my husband and I created a vision board for 2025 when we were looking at, like, okay, what are we really going to set out to do this year? One of the visions was building community locally and strengthening our local community. And so, all in all, I see the game nights as a very intentional way to do that. And yeah, I want it to be fun and I want it to be like chill overall. Like, I don't want other people to, feel any pressure. However, I am following Priya Parker's idea of not being a chill host so I can ensure what I want these to bring about happens. And for those of you who are like, okay, I mean, what are you trying to do with these? Really? Thing life, I guess I can't say nothing life changing, but like nothing crazy. Bringing people together who may not have known each other otherwise, connecting people who maybe have similar interests but like did not know the other person existed. I'm trying to collect more with people of color in the area. A lot of my high school and middle school friends and college friends that I'm still friends with are white. So also just trying to expand, the racial ethnic makeup of my friend group more broadly and bringing other folks together in the indie area. Also like creatives and trying to connect around like creative projects. And so, yeah, just opening it up. And I'm more than happy to have my house kind of be a place where that can really grow and thrive. And just to me in general, I believe, and I feel like even more lately, I'm leaning into the fact that a full life, in my opinion, is one lived with a constant eye for betterment. That's what I really want to be focusing on in this podcast moving forward, and something I want to be engaging with you all about, whether it's my relationships, my, marriage, my family, or betterment of the events that I do. How can this just be a little better, a little tighter, a little more intentional, a little more of, a better springboard for a community than the events last year? And I get excited by that. I don't feel like, sure, there's a little pressure, but I'm the sort of person where a little pressure just kind of brings the best out of me. So I get excited by that. I want to be better year after year. And I look forward to kind of that like endless potential that comes with betterment. So want to just put that in you all's court. Are you thinking about community in that similar way? Can you not relate to that at all? What does community building in your life and for you really look like right now? And if that's something you're wanting to get better at, how are you pragmatically going about that? And let's just kind of keep the conversation open. So thanks for listening to another mini moment segment. And yeah, let's move on. Well, that is a wrap. Send me an email, please, with your thoughts on what community building is like for you and your comments or advice on what I spoke to. I'm really curious what you all have to think. You can email jadonnalive@gmail.com with your thoughts and comments, and I look forward to engaging. And in the meantime, I will chat with y'all next week. Take it easy, breathe deeply, and keep doing what you do. I'll catch you next week. Same place, same vibe. Bye.